Good morning. My name's Robyn Henderson, and I'm regarded as a networking strategist, ghostwriter, and author. And today I'm having a conversation with Jill Sweatman. Jill is a neuroscience specialist in education, learning, and development. Hi, Jill.
Hello, Robyn. Great to be with you.
Now, today, Jill, we go back a long way in friendship and business, and we were talking the other day about what people write about and what inspires them to write. And I thought this session would be an interesting, just a conversation about writing and some of the challenges that people have, as well as some tips that we can both share, things that we do on a regular basis that help us kickstart the writing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea, Robyn. Yeah.
So one of the things that I think about speaking or writing, we're both professional speakers, and speaking and writing in my world or in my mind, I think are very similar. So when we think about writing, it's always who's your target audience. Now, for you, that might be a student, it might be a university, a high school student, a university student. It might be a corporate client, a government client. It's really a cross-section of people. Yet some of the things we write might be relevant to all of them.
That's right.
Or something that we might put out in our social media or on our websites, whatever tools that we're using, that is picked up by someone and passed on to someone else. Yeah, so once we've established who we're writing about, and that's sort of linked to who's your target market. Who's your target market? Why are you bothering to write it? Now, if it's an opinion piece,
yes,
and there's a lot of those in the newspapers, and it's often, I think a lot of readers of newspapers don't realise it's not necessarily a journalist, it's a person expressing an opinion rather than being newsworthy.
it's true. And I know that even if I've been asked to write an opinion piece, from an academic perspective, I always feel I have to back it up with some level of research. Because,
yes,
with my interest in education and also more in the last decade or so, really focusing on neuroscience, I know that my opinions are based on research, but also I have the anecdotal experience to meld with that.
yes,
So I try and bring that level of, in some ways, it's trying to give an opinion so that people will pay attention to that. But they're also today, I think, and I guess last year was a testimony to that. People are looking for the research behind that.
yes,
So
yes.
it validates the opinion.
Yes. Yeah, that's an important point to raise. Yes. So once you've established why you're writing it and also what you're wanting to achieve with it, is it going to be something that is passed on to many people? Is it something that someone's going to read once and delete? Is it something that they're even going to bother to read? That's also part of it. Sometimes I get asked by clients and potential authors saying, well, what am I going to write about? And one of the things I say to them is, well, what do you know? What's your experience? What's your background? And what's your passions?
Yeah.
Because someone might be a financial advisor, they might be a real estate agent, but they were cheering for their sports team this week or last week or the week before, or cheering for something in their world. And would you agree that writing about something that you're very passionate, you might not get the research in there, but you'll get your passion and enthusiasm, and it will be factual in terms of the history of the team or the sport or what's happening in the sport at the moment.
Yeah.
And that will make that article interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And I know when I work with my university students and I get them to do presentation skills, and the topic that they do is their passion.
Yes.
What's their juice? What do they daydream about? What's really drives them? If they had all the money in the world, what would they choose to do? And I always get them to look at each other's presentation and they will speak with a different voice. Their voice is different, their face is different, their micro expressions are different. And I think
different in what way?
Much more truthful. You know,
Okay.
you see a baseline of truth. You know, if
Right.
we were studying Paul Ekman's work in, how do you detect lies? I think there would be, as you know, Dr. Paul Ekman did all
Yes.
the research around that. But you get a baseline for somebody's truth.
Right.
It's fascinating. You can't fake that.
No.
And so even though my students are petroleum engineers, or they might be working in medical sciences or whatever the case might be, it doesn't matter. But what they're getting with learning by reading faces and by dealing with people, what is their baseline of truth? And their faces are different, their focus of their eyes are different, their voice is different. It's fascinating.
Yes, that's an interesting point also when people apply for jobs.
Oh, yeah.
And often there's that this is essential, and it might say experience in this industry is preferred. And depending on what the role is, I would think it's essential, because depending what the role is. But if they have no interest at all in film, well, they'd just be bored out of their brain every day. That would be the ultimate job for me, working in the film industry. I'm just a film tragic, and a good Australian drama, give me that any day. So it really, yeah, but I take the point that you're making, that when they're talking about something that they're passionate about,
Yes,
then that shines through. And I believe that shines through in writing as well.
Absolutely, it shines through. And their choice of words, their descriptors, even their sentence structure, it all changes. And I get them to choose a quote. And I love to, you and I both love quotes, I know that. And just the quotes they choose are so sophisticated, or they've taken something from a person you never heard before. And I think, isn't this wonderful? They've done their own research to find the mentors that are important for them.
Yeah, so on that point of research, that's an interesting thing, as you're saying, with the academic writing and the theory under things. And someone that might be watching this or hearing it and thinking, oh, well, we've got to take that word out of our language. I'm just writing this about this because I feel very passionate about that. Well, it doesn't mean that you can't research what other people think, what other people's opinions are, and you can quote them and say, John Smith, although John Smith has taken this angle, I believe, and when we're writing about something that is a bit controversial, we are entitled to our opinion.
Sure.
And I think that's the key thing in an opinion piece, that it is exactly that. This is my opinion, and I may well tell you why I'm so passionate about that. And it may be well, if we look at fundraising and causes, it might be a cancer foundation fundraising event, and you're sharing your own experience, either personal or someone close to you, and why you're so passionate about raising money for that project, or going in a fun run or whatever. So do you think that sometimes people are afraid to reveal that personal side of their life for fear that others may judge them? Have you come across that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point you make. Sometimes people don't really want to say what is their truth, and perhaps the experiences that they've had that may, as you said, particularly in something controversial, go against the grain.
Yes, yes.
Recently, I did some research, as I do, around ADHD. But what I find in my own practice with the people with whom I work, whether they're adults who claim they have ADHD or children, and I'm talking about those who really want to go hard on a label. And as you know, I don't like to work with a label. I like to work with potential.
Yes.
And I've been and sat in quite a few medical conferences where the person who is speaking about a particular illness or condition, whatever it may be, will say that whatever happens in your surgery, in your room, with your patient, with your client, that's important, you know. And so whether I'm
Yes.
working with a family or working with a child or having a conversation with anybody, that is validation for the experiences that I'm having that may yet not have reached a research paper.
Yes, yes, that's very true. And on a writing a book or writing an article, I was having a conversation yesterday with an author to be, hasn't published yet, but has certainly written comprehensively. And she was asking about some of the mistakes that authors make. And one of them I said was that they worry too much about someone judging them, that they're worried about expressing their opinion. So tying in with what you said, that's the real thing. And then the second thing was that sometimes they take it very personally, take feedback. I try to be very constructive with feedback. And I gave her the example of a doctor that sent me some work recently, and the sentences were 150 words, and I was totally losing track of what the drift of everything. And apart from it was he was talking about a medical thing, and long story short, I did decline the work because I thought I wouldn't do it justice. And I think you've got to be, you know, smart enough to do that. And I referred him to someone else who that would be right up their alley. But I said to him, may I suggest to you before you send it off to this person that you reduce the length of your sentences. I said, I could charge you a lot of money and all I would be doing is cutting those 120s into like 430s, roughly. And he said, oh, but that might lose some of the context. And I said, but it will be easier to understand.
Yes.
So I think, you know, in the whole writing process, that you don't take it personally when someone gives you what they believe to be feedback. There's feedback and there's just someone being nasty. That's a whole different. We won't go into that today, but there's that feedback is just, oh, it might be better if you started with this, or how about you use this heading, or finish it here. I think that sort of thing is just constructive feedback, not to be offended when that is given.
Yes.
And with the doctor, I look forward to reading, you know, whatever he ends up with, because I'm sure it'll be very interesting. However, you've got to just, if you're asking someone for feedback, you've got to be prepared that it won't all be, that's fantastic, we loved, oh, yes, that's great, don't change a word. Of course, you wouldn't have asked for feedback if you didn't want them to change a word.
That's right. No, that's right. And I know you've been very generous with me on many occasions where I've given you my articles to edit. And I've been, it's like handing you, here's my baby, please, you do something with it. And, you know, I let go because I realize that you will come from a different angle. You'll be seeing it differently. And I welcome the feedback enormously, because I know from the experiences I've had with you over many years that you're able to distill what it is I've struggled with. You're able to put bullet points to something and put a top and a tail. But I think it's acknowledging your own worth as a writer, and that somebody else can see it differently. And isn't that wonderful?
Yeah,
they can trim it and finesse it to an audience.
Thanks for your kind words, Jill. I'm very fortunate, and I put my ability, one of my abilities that I learned back in the 80s. So for those of you who are listening thinking, oh my goodness, how old is she? Yes, I am 68 this year. So what I learned though is that back in the 80s, I sold advertising for the Sydney Morning Herald, and we learned what is called the A.I.D.A principle, A.I.D.A. And this has been in advertising, I think, probably for 500 years. I think they still use it today pretty much from what I see. And there's no reason to change it, because basically it says at the start, attention, grab someone's attention. And usually that title whether it's a title of a book, title of an article, title of a post, title of a blog, title of a movie, needs to be something they go, oh, I want to read more. And if it's uses the word you or someone close to you that you care about, they're more inclined to continue to read.
Right.
So the attention compelling heading is, number one in advertising, and I believe writing. The second one is interest. The I stands for interest, generating someone's interest. So, oh, okay. Oh, well, this has been researched, or this is your opinion, or gee, here's some facts I didn't know about. And the D stands for desire. How do you actually, if we're writing a piece about getting someone inspired to donate some money for a fundraiser or take action on their fitness or their health or maths or whatever it is that we're studying, that the tools that they need, here's the desire, sort of the what's in it for me if I bother to do this. Oh, gee, I will get an outcome, and here's the outcome. And then the action at the end. Now, if we're writing articles, as both of us do on LinkedIn, then the action might be that certainly they're going to take action on our content. But if we don't put some way for them to contact us, they may not.
Yeah.
At least if we put it in, they'll be more inclined to go, and it might be, oh, let's go back to, well, Jill's written this interesting one. She's a neuroscience specialist. Oh, education. Well, I'm in education. I might be interested. And just putting Jill Sweatman, which is, as the listeners can see, Sweatman, jillsweatman.com. Just putting that on the bottom at least means that you're potentially driving some traffic to your website, rather than having the article and then someone says, which I've done many times, go, well, where did this come from? And who is this person? And sure, I can go on to Copyscape and put in a few words and try and track you, but no one goes to that much effort.
Yeah.
So I've got to make the action, A.I.D.A, attention, interest, desire, action. I've got to have a call to action at the end, but I've also have a call to action so that if someone does want to make contact with me, this is how you do it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. I know you planted that at the bottom of my articles more than once, so I'm grateful for that. And I also noticed that you are masterful at creating a title, and often that title, you turn it into a question. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yes. Well, again, this is part of attention and the advertising industry. And bless my manager for that years ago. I mean, and we're talking about the mid-'80s when they weren't called call centres. It was a telemarketing, and there were outbound calls and inbound calls at the Sydney Morning Herald. And it was invaluable training that we did, because we were churning out hundreds of ads every day. So you had to get really good at it. Wow. And asking a question grabs someone's attention.
Yeah.
So that's really the basis of that. If they're scanning through LinkedIn or Facebook or any newsfeed, and there's dozens and dozens and dozens, if you ask a question and they scan it, and I think you've got like 3 seconds or something for them to scan, or could be 7, but like it's a blink really at the end of the day. If you've asked a question and they go, oh, either I don't know the answer to that, or, oh, that applies to my partner, family, son, daughter, friend. Oh, I'd like to know the answer to that. I'll keep reading. And you do have to grab them in that first paragraph.
Yeah.
A bit like a book. When you start the book, I give a book. I read avidly. I absolutely love reading. I read non-fiction in the day when I'm working on it, and I read fiction at night to sort of switch off and go to sleep. And I can read. I give a book maybe 40 pages, and then if they haven't grabbed me in that first 40, I just pass it on to a little network of people I've got who love reading. And I go, this didn't grab me, but it might grab you.
Yeah, yeah.
And other ones, I read fiction books and I go, this would make a brilliant
Film,
film or 6-part series. Yeah, I can pick those in a blink. They're because it's the storytelling that it involves. So that's really what we're doing in our way. We're telling a story, and I know we use words like case history or a personal story or based on my lived experience, that sort of phrase. but we're telling a story about why we're an authority on this,
Yes.
or why we have a passion for this, or why it means something to us,
Yeah. Yeah.
or why people need to know it.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that you just mentioned then, Robyn, and I'm just thinking I've had an association recently with an optometrist, and we've been talking about education and the need for children to have excellent eyesight. But in my research with that, our eyes actually go ahead of what it is that we're reading. So our peripheral vision will pick something up.
Yes.
And I'm wondering whether, it just came to me a moment ago when you were talking, whether that question mark somehow alerts the brain to hear when you said, do you put the word you in, or do you make some connection with someone close to you? And then you've got a question mark, whether that somehow
activates a different part of the brain. Could well do.
And I wonder if that is. And the other thing that you were talking about, I've worked a lot with journalists over the last few years. And in terms of research, that's just what they do. They don't necessarily go to journal articles. They don't necessarily go to doctors to write a story. They will go to people who have an interest, who have a passion, who have experience in a particular area, and they will come to me because they know I'm particularly interested in education and children, and you know, I have that involvement. And then I layer, should I choose the neuroscience on top of that? But that is my passion, and that's where I see that when you're talking about what grabs people's attention, that's what games do. That's what online games do. It grabs that attention and holds that. So does social media, so does television. So all we're doing is wanting to alert the brain and to grab the attention so that the person wishes to read, as you say, at least the first part, to support them.
Yes. Yeah, they're very valid points, Jill. And I also think that sometimes for any of the listeners who might be in small business or big business, and they're churning out. I read an interesting article yesterday about some of the influencers worldwide who are running out of content because they're posting every day, and unless they're having interesting lives, very hard to post every day on this is what I did if you're not really doing anything, or if it's a bit too artificial. So there was the whole stress related to that. I found it, I cut it out. I will send it to you. I thought it was quite humorous. But I think part of it is, what's it like being you for a day, and what does your potential client or prospect need to know about the systems that you have? So it might be a personal trainer who says, well, they get up at whatever time of day, they do this before sunrise, they might meditate, they might do all these different things, and this is what they eat, and these are the times they do it. For me, it might be someone, and I had a conversation, have lots of conversations with potential authors, and I said to this lady the other day, please don't make the mistake of committing to write every day. And she said, oh no, I read that, James A. Michener did, da-da-da-da, and Bryce Courtney did this. And I said, well, you're not James A. Michener and you're not Bryce Courtney. I said, why I say that is it's a bit like going to the gym. If you gung-ho, and this is from lived experience, if you say, I'm going to the gym every day, the first day you don't go, you beat yourself up.
Yes.
If I say, I'm going to get on my exercise bike or do deep water running in the pool, and I'm going to do that 5 to 6 days a week, then if I miss one on Sunday, I don't beat myself up. I can go, I can do a double, or I can, it's okay. I still did 6 this week. I just didn't do the 7. And with writing, I believe that if someone's got their weekly schedule, which I'm sure most people have, that they look and they go, okay, well, when's it convenient? Maybe I give up if I'm wanting to write this book and I'm thinking it might be 20 to 25,000 words, roughly 150 pages, average business size book, then I'll give up 4 hours of my weekend, or I'll give up 1 day of my weekend, or I'll give up 2 nights a week, or I'll get up early. If you're not an early riser, don't commit to that. But whatever your system is, you've got to make time to write, because books don't write themselves, or blogs don't write themselves. You've got to actually allocate time. And I think that that's a really big point that a lot of authors and writers don't get, that you don't have to do it every day. You actually need to have a life to stimulate your ideas, to do your research, to read more and listen to podcasts and YouTube and all sorts of different ways we've got of getting information today. But we've got to have a life somewhere in there, because that then stimulates the things that we write about. And
It does.
I had a wonderful mentor years ago who said, write about at least 50% of your presentation needs to be things that have happened in the last 24 hours. And I thought, oh my goodness, well, and he was referring to when you travel to an area and you've come in the day before and you're speaking the next morning or whatever. And I said, oh, but I only went down the main street and I had a conversation with her. But what he gave me was planted the seed that's relevant to the audience.
Right.
And it's what's relevant to the reader.
Yeah.
They don't care if you've spoken in 13 countries, like both of us have done. They couldn't care less about that. They want to know if they're in Wagga Wagga or Burke, what's relevant to them. They don't want to hear how great you are. They want to actually hear, in all of your greatness, how does it apply to me, where I am and my situation right now. That's what they want to know. And I think that really guides what you write about, that it's not how great you are. It's humility, I think, needs to come across in your writing. I know we haven't discussed this before, Jill, but it's different thinking, isn't it?
It is. It is. And you and I have always done this, whether we've been working overseas or whether we've been working locally, is I will always go in the day before. I will always go to my destination the day before. And I will deliberately go to the venue. I need to see where I'll be speaking.
Scope it out. Yes.
Exactly. Because I know that I sleep better knowing that it's not a surprise to me when I get the next day.
Yes.
I want to know how the chairs are laid out and where the light's coming and all manner of things. But for me, that's also a way of acclimatizing to the environment.
Yes.
And usually, I make a point of, as you would, speaking to as many people as possible. So when you're speaking, that you can make reference to people in the audience, and you've shaken hands when we could shake hands.
Yes.
With as many folks as possible. Preferably they sit up the front so you've got a few friends to start your presentation. Yeah, you're right. And it is about humility. And I think it's important to never underestimate, and this is where I went before, when sitting amongst, and I would be the only layperson sitting amongst a whole lot of doctors listening to a lecture, that they have been, that's been implored with them to pay attention to the person who's opposite, to not just rush quickly to a diagnosis. It's to ask better questions. And we're writing. Isn't that what we're doing? We're asking better questions.
Yes.
Certainly more questions. And I do that with all of my clients. If I'm having a consultation with whether it's with my university colleagues or whether it's with parents or whether it's a corporate client, no meeting is less than an hour and a half.
Yes.
I know I can't ask the questions that I need to ask if in 40 minutes. I can't do it in 15. I can't do it in 7 minutes. I need to get more background, and that way I feel that I've honoured the person in front of me.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jill. And often on LinkedIn, I'll say, when I post something about writing or business in general, I'll often write that I'm happy to do a complimentary 20 to 30 minute
You're very generous.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Well, it's along the same lines though, Jill. I want to know what their situation is and if I can help them. And for everyone that I say, yes, let's work together, or here's how I see us working, there's also another one who I'll say, I'm not the person for you, because I either know so little about their area, or it's not an area that would grab me at all, that I know, no, I don't think this is what I'd really like to work on. This wouldn't, I don't feel I could contribute enough, give them enough positive feedback on it. Or sometimes it's just like 200,000 words and they go, you know, what do you think? And I think, oh, you've got 4 books here. Oh no, it's all got to go in one. And I just, well, I'll walk away from that one, because the convincing that you need to do to say no one will read a book this thick is not worth the stress.
3 War and Peace, right? Is that right?
Well, you know, and not saying that their writing isn't fabulous, but sometimes it's got to be, who's your reader? Are they going to, a lady the other day, she was writing about people being overwhelmed, and she had 60, 80,000 words. And I said, oh, you know, you've got 2 or 3 books here. And she said, oh, how can you say that? And I said, because in my day, I have been overwhelmed. And I said, I wouldn't buy a book that was more than a centimetre thick. And that's around, you know, 20 to 25. So if anything, they're wanting a quick fix. Overwhelmed people want a quick fix.
Yes.
So there's all that comes into writing. So this has been really interesting, Jill, just shooting ideas from you, because we both, we've worked together, we've worked separately, we have similar views, but possibly quite different writing styles or writing habits. So it's good to have a conversation where ideally the listener says, okay, well, what did I get out of that? And I think if we had to conceptualize or just do like a dot point summary at the end, it would be about, do your research, you know what you're talking about, whether it's something academic or something, if I call it day to day, know what you're talking about, you know, because the holes in things when you don't know what you're talking about are really obvious. So know what you're talking about. Be prepared to research enough to get a case history or share one of your own stories. Preferably don't, if it's a negative one about anyone, change their name. You don't want to get sued in the whole scheme of things. And think about the reader. How much do they want to read? Is this going to be something like, does it need to be short, 300 words? Does it need to be 3,000 words? What's that like? And I guess the final point is, you know, what do you know that one of your clients would like to know and long-term might be prepared to pay for? Because at the end of the day, we both use writing as a marketing tool.
Sure. Yeah. And it's an important one too. And also, I think if we could add to those dot bullet points, Robyn, is being willing to have somebody else read your work and take the feedback.
Yeah, and not take it personally.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, you know, feedback really is just information. It's not, I think if we label feedback as positive or negative, we can't possibly receive feedback in the way it's intended.
Yes.
That is just it's information.
Yes.
And if you go to an expert, as you are, with editing and with being a ghostwriter and with your own work, you know, you are handing to an expert to say, make this better for me, you know.
Yes.
And feedback is simply just that, help me to be better. And that there will be humility in that, to be willing to make the changes.
Yes.
Make your own work better for you and of course for your audience.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Jill, we'll leave it there. Thank you for your time. If any of the listeners or viewers, I know we'll be putting this out in multiple versions, would like to make contact with Jill Sweatman, neuroscience specialist in education, learning and development, Jill Sweatman, SWEATMAN.com, and Robyn Henderson, networking to win, TOWIN.com.au, or www.writeitforme.com.au. Until next time, Jill.
Indeed. Good to be with you, Robyn.
Thanks.
Pleasure.